artists. This video is all about the different kinds of drawing pencils. It's important to know which kind of drawing pencil to use where, so we're going to go over that right now. So first thing I have in front of you is a drawing pencil scale. It might look a lot like a value scale, but I promise you this is all about the pencils. There's two different kinds of drawing pencils. So you're going to see some with an H on the end of them, and you're going to see some with a B on the end of them, and you'll find that right at the bottom of your pencil, right there. First, we're going to talk about the H. So, H stands for hard. Write that down. And that just means that the lead is hard. Because that lead is so hard, it actually makes the lead appear lighter whenever you write on it. So the higher the number next to the H, the harder the lead, and in turn, the lighter your lead will write. So if you can imagine, if you're trying to write with something like a 6H, which is incredibly hard, then it's kind of like writing with a rock, just nothing happens. We're not going to be using the H pencils because, frankly, they don't blend very well, and so we're going to stay away from those, and instead, we're going to focus on the Bs. Now, the B pencils are the softer pencils. They're called Bs because they're so soft, if you press really hard, you can make them appear almost black. Because they're so soft, they're going to appear much darker, kind of like chalk. So if it's a softer thing, like chalk, and so it'll appear a lot darker and it'll crumble a lot more. The higher the number next to the B, the darker it's going to appear. HB is just your standard pencil. That's what you use probably every day in most classes. It's great for just sketching and for starting to draw the contours. As you move on to your values, you're going to want to start using these Bs. So I always keep 2 Bs, 4 Bs, and 6 Bs available in your little drawing container for each of your tables. Now let's go ahead, and I want you to make a value scale. But this time when you make your value scale, I want you to make it using the correct pencil. You might want to take a screenshot of this in order to see or copy this down. So here's my little value scale with my cheat sheet of which pencils work best with which values. The first few values work great with just HBs or even maybe 2Bs. The middle values will work great with 2Bs, and then you'll get to 4Bs. The darker values work best with 6Bs because they're much lighter. When you start to actually use these pencils, this is a 6B, you'll notice that it writes much darker, much quicker. When you get to the really, really dark one, like the 6, at the very end of this, I will give you a pencil called ebony. The reason you don't have an ebony pencil at first is because you can't erase it. It's made out of a different kind of graphite, and so it actually makes it appear basically black. So we like to keep these for the very end, just to go over those really, really dark shadows. After you've created your scale and you've tested out each of your different values, you can also experiment with this tool, which is called a tortillon. Use the side of the tortillon to smooth in different areas. I like to go in circular motions to help create smooth surface. Make sure you're not just using the tip of the tortillon, because if you press down on that tip too much, that's how the tortillon gets flat and it no longer will work. So instead, you use the sides. Once you feel comfortable with your value scale, you might also create a running value scale where it goes smoothly from one value to the next. On your image, you're not just going to use a straight value. Instead, you're going to have values changing from one to the next and vice versa all the way throughout. So it's important to be able to practice making values transition to other values and just practice that in your sketchbook. Make sure you always refer to this value scale whenever you're working. Make sure you're checking your value with your image. I like to put hole punches in the bottom of mine so I can literally put the value scale on top of an image and then determine which value it is by comparing it with each of these. Let me know if you have any further questions, and have fun with these pencils. Now, if you do have to take yours home, don't worry. You can use any pencil for this, really. It's still going to work. You could use an HB and get a really dark value. You could also use a 6B and use a really light value. However, the reason we use drawing pencils is because they help, okay? So if you were using an HB and you wanted a really dark value, you'd probably hurt your hand pressing so hard, whereas a 6B would do it really easily. If you were using a 6B, creating a really light value, you'd have to be really, really careful, whereas with an HB, you wouldn't have to be careful. That's why we use these awesome tools. Stay tuned for more videos.